A poor black girl walked into a blind date with only $10 in her pocket, but she never knew that at the next table, a billionaire single dad CEO was watching her every move, and what happened next would change her life forever. Let's continue this story. The restaurant buzzed with soft music and the clinking of silverware, but all she could hear was the loud thumping of her own heart. Jasmine pushed open the door nervously, clutching her tiny purse against her chest. Inside that purse, she had only 10 crumpled dollars, her whole budget for tonight. Her shoes weren't new, her dress was borrowed from her neighbor, and her confidence was hanging by a thread. This was supposed to be her first blind date, and she prayed silently that it wouldn't turn into her last. She walked slowly toward a table at the corner where a young man had already been seated. He wore an expensive-looking jacket, had neatly styled hair, and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jasmine tried to steady her breathing. This was Malik, the man her co-worker had set her up with. He looked up from his phone, gave her a quick nod, and returned to scrolling, as if she were just another appointment on his busy calendar. "Hi, I'm Jasmine," she whispered, pulling out the chair. "Yeah, I know. Sit," Malik replied flatly, his eyes still glued to his phone. Jasmine lowered herself into the chair, feeling small and invisible. She reminded herself that she had promised to give this a chance, even though her instincts already told her something felt off. She opened the menu, but her chest tightened when she saw the prices. Every dish cost more than the money she had in her purse. She swallowed hard. Meanwhile, just 2 tables away, a man in a navy blue suit sat with his little daughter. He wasn't supposed to notice her, but he did. The man's name was David, a single dad and the CEO of a growing tech company. Most of the time, he was busy with board meetings, investors, and the heavy responsibilities of running a multi-million-dollar business. But tonight, it was just him and his daughter, Emma. She loved coming here because they made the best strawberry milkshakes. David had seen many people walk into this restaurant before, but something about Jasmine caught his attention. Maybe it was the way she clutched her purse so tightly, or the way her eyes darted around nervously, as if she didn't belong here. He watched her sit with her date, noticing how the man across from her barely even acknowledged her presence. Back at Jasmine's table, Malik finally put down his phone. "So, what do you do again?" he asked casually, glancing at her for the first time. "I work part-time at a bookstore," Jasmine replied softly. "And I also take care of my younger brother. He's still in high school." Malik raised his eyebrows. "So, no real career yet?" The word stung, but she forced a small smile. "I'm saving up, hoping to go back to school soon." Malik leaned back, unimpressed. You know, I was hoping for someone a little more established. I mean, looks are fine, but stability matters, right?" Jasmine's fingers tightened around her menu. She felt heat rising to her cheeks. This was supposed to be a date, not a job interview where she was being judged for every flaw. Still, she nodded politely, because what else could she do? A waitress arrived with a notepad, ready to take their orders. Malik ordered a steak and a glass of wine without hesitation. When it was Jasmine's turn, she hesitated. Her eyes scanned the menu desperately, searching for something she could afford. "I'll just have a salad," she said finally, her voice trembling. Malik smirked. "That's all. Don't tell me you're one of those diet girls." Jasmine laughed nervously. "No, I'm not very hungry." But the truth was sitting heavy in her purse. $10. That was all. From his table, David noticed everything. The way she fumbled with the menu, the way her smile looked forced, the way her date didn't care. Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, why does that lady look so sad?" David's heart softened. "Sometimes people just have hard days, sweetheart," he whispered. But deep down, he wanted to know more. The food arrived. Malik dug into his steak greedily while Jasmine picked at her salad, forcing every bite down even though her stomach growled for more. Malik talked about himself nonstop, his job, his car, his gym membership, the trips he wanted to take. Jasmine listened quietly, nodding now and then, but he never once asked her about her dreams, her struggles, or her life. "Honestly, Jasmine," Malik said suddenly, leaning closer, "I don't think this is going to work. I mean, you're nice, but you're not really my type. I'm looking for someone who can match my lifestyle, you know?" The words sliced through her chest. She swallowed hard and forced a smile. "I understand." He waved for the check without hesitation. When the waitress brought the bill, Malik pulled out his wallet. But then, to Jasmine's horror, He frowned. Oh shoot. I forgot my main card. Do you mind covering your part? Just $12. Jasmine froze. 12. She only had 10. Her hands trembled under the table as she opened her purse. The two bills looked smaller than ever. She thought about her bus fare home, about the groceries she still needed to buy for her brother. Malik sighed impatiently. Come on, it's not that much. Before Jasmine could respond, a voice from the next table spoke up. Calm, deep, and confident. I've got her covered, David said, pulling out his card. His eyes met Jasmine's for the first time, and she felt a strange warmth in his gaze. Malik turned, surprised. Excuse me? We're fine, man. But David only smiled politely. Don't worry. It's taken care of. Jasmine stared at him, her lips parting in shock. For the first time that evening, she felt like someone saw her. Not her dress, not her empty purse, not her lack of status, but her. And in that moment, something shifted. Jasmine's throat tightened as she looked at the stranger who had just stepped in for her. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She wasn't used to kindness, not from strangers, and definitely not in a place like this. Malik frowned, clearly annoyed, but David's calm gaze made it impossible to argue. The waitress swiped David's card, thanked him, and left. See? That was unnecessary, Malik muttered, leaning back with irritation. I could have handled it. But Jasmine could see the truth written all over his face. He wasn't embarrassed because of the money. He was embarrassed that another man had seen through him. Malik stood up abruptly. Anyway, I should get going. Good luck with whatever you're doing. Without waiting for her reply, he slipped his phone back into his pocket and walked out, leaving Jasmine sitting alone at the table with a half-eaten salad and a half-broken heart. She tried to gather herself, but her eyes blurred with tears. She didn't want anyone to see her cry, especially not the man who had just saved her from humiliation. She wiped her cheeks quickly and reached for her purse. Before she could leave, a soft voice spoke again. Are you okay? Jasmine turned her head and saw him. David, sitting with his daughter. He had kind eyes, the kind that held both strength and gentleness. The little girl beside him was sipping her milkshake, her legs swinging happily under the table. I'm fine, Jasmine said quickly, forcing a small smile. Thank you for earlier. You really didn't have to do that. David shook his head. Sometimes we do things not because we have to, but because we should. His words were simple, but they wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Emma, curious as ever, tilted her head. Daddy, is she your friend? David chuckled softly. Not yet, but maybe she will be. He looked back at Jasmine. Would you like to join us? You don't have to sit alone. Jasmine hesitated. A voice inside her screamed to say no, to run, to avoid another moment of vulnerability. But another voice, the quieter one, the one she almost never listened to, urged her to take the chance. After all, what did she have to lose? Slowly, she nodded and moved to their table. She sat down across from David and Emma, feeling strangely nervous, as if this moment carried more weight than she realized. Emma beamed at her. I'm Emma. What's your name? Jasmine, she replied, her lips curving into a genuine smile for the first time that evening. That's a pretty name, Emma said, sipping her milkshake. David studied Jasmine quietly for a moment, noticing how her shoulders seemed tense, how she kept her hands close to her purse as if afraid it might be taken from her. She carried herself with dignity, but he could see the invisible weight she bore. So, he began gently. Was that your first blind date? Jasmine let out a nervous laugh. And probably my last. I don't think I'm cut out for this kind of thing. David leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Maybe you just haven't met the right kind of person yet. The way he said it made her chest tighten. She wasn't used to men speaking with such sincerity. Malik's words had been sharp, careless, designed to wound. But David's words felt safe. Still, she shook her head. I don't really fit in here. Truth is, I only had $10 tonight. I thought I could stretch it, make it work somehow. But you saw how that went. David's heart ached at her honesty. He admired her courage for admitting it out loud. Most people tried to hide their struggles, but here she was, laying her vulnerability bare. You came anyway, he said quietly. That says a lot more about you than the size of your wallet. Jasmine blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? It means you're braver than you think, he replied simply. Before she could answer, Emma leaned forward excitedly. Do you like milkshakes, Jasmine? They're the best here. Jasmine laughed softly. I love milkshakes, but maybe another time. Emma pouted. Daddy, can we order her one, please? David smiled at his daughter's persistence. Only if Jasmine says yes. Jasmine's instinct was to decline, to avoid owing anyone more kindness. But when she looked into Emma's hopeful eyes, she couldn't say no. Okay, just one milkshake, she said with a shy smile. Minutes later, the waitress brought a tall glass topped with whipped cream and a cherry. Jasmine took a small sip, and for the first time all evening, she felt a tiny spark of joy. Emma giggled, clapping her hands. As they sat together, the conversation began to flow more easily. Jasmine told them about her job at the bookstore, how she loved being surrounded by stories even though the pay barely covered her bills. She mentioned her younger brother, Marcus, who was her whole world. She spoke about her dreams of going back to school, though she wasn't sure if she'd ever afford it. David listened intently, never once interrupting, never once judging. His gaze didn't carry pity, it carried respect. He admired the strength it took for her to keep going despite everything. And what about you? Jasmine asked finally, curious. What do you do? David hesitated for a moment. He rarely revealed his identity to strangers, especially those who might see him differently because of it. I run a company, he said vaguely. Mostly tech stuff. It keeps me busy. Jasmine nodded. That sounds important. He chuckled softly. Sometimes. But not as important as being a dad. He glanced at Emma, whose face lit up at his words. Jasmine felt something stir inside her. A strange warmth, a quiet admiration. She had seen men chase power, money, status. But here was someone who valued fatherhood above it all. It was different. The night wore on, and Jasmine found herself laughing more than she had in months. Emma's playful energy was contagious, and David's calm presence felt like an anchor she didn't know she needed. When the clock neared closing time, David stood and offered to walk her out. Jasmine hesitated again, but Emma grabbed her hand enthusiastically. Come on, Jasmine. Outside, the cool night air brushed against her skin. The streets were quiet, the city lights glowing in the distance. Jasmine hugged her purse close, feeling both exposed and oddly safe at the same time. David looked at her seriously. Do you have a ride home? She shook her head. I'll catch the bus. His brow furrowed. At this hour? No, I'll drive you. Oh no, I couldn't. You can, he interrupted gently. And you should. There was something in his tone that left no room for argument, but it wasn't commanding, it was protective. For once, Jasmine allowed herself to let someone else take the lead. She nodded slowly, following him toward his car. As they walked, Emma chattered happily about school, her favorite cartoons, and how she wanted Jasmine to come over sometime to read her stories. Jasmine laughed softly, glancing at David, who smiled knowingly. And in that quiet walk to the car, Jasmine realized something she never expected. Maybe tonight wasn't the disaster she thought it would be. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something else. The drive home was quiet at first, except for Emma's cheerful chatter from the back seat. Jasmine sat in the passenger seat, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. She had never been inside such a luxurious car before. The leather smelled new, the seats were warm, and the silence between words carried a weight she wasn't sure how to handle. David kept his eyes on the road, but he noticed her unease. You don't have to be nervous, he said gently. Jasmine forced a smile. I'm not nervous. Just not used to this. This? He asked curiously. Kindness, she admitted softly, her eyes fixed on the city lights rushing past the window. People don't usually go out of their way for me. David's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Maybe you've been around the wrong kind of people. She turned to him, caught off guard by the conviction in his voice. His words weren't just casual. They carried a depth that made her wonder about the life he had lived, the losses he might have known. When they reached her neighborhood, Jasmine's cheeks burned with embarrassment. The streets were cracked, the buildings worn down, and the flickering streetlights barely lit the way. She prayed he wouldn't judge her, prayed he wouldn't see the shame she carried every day. This is me, she said quickly, pointing to a small apartment building with peeling paint. Thank you again for everything. David parked the car, but didn't turn it off. He looked at her with quiet sincerity. Jasmine, don't thank me. Tonight wasn't about helping you. It was about meeting you. And I'm glad I did. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever said something like that to her before. She opened the door, but before stepping out, Emma's voice piped up. Jasmine, can you come over sometime? Daddy makes pancakes on Sundays. Jasmine laughed softly. "We'll see, sweetheart." She waved goodnight and disappeared into the shadows of her building, her heart pounding with emotions she couldn't name. Inside her small apartment, she collapsed onto her bed. Marcus, her younger brother, poked his head out of his room. "How was the date?" he asked cautiously. Jasmine sighed. It was complicated. But as she lay awake that night, one image lingered in her mind. The way David's eyes had looked at her, not with pity, not with judgment, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. The next few days passed in a blur. Jasmine went back to her routine, working long hours at the bookstore, cooking meals for Marcus, stretching every dollar until it nearly broke. She told herself that night had just been a fluke, a moment she shouldn't hold on to. Men like David didn't stay in the lives of women like her. And yet, on Wednesday afternoon, the bell above the bookstore door jingled, and there he was. David, standing tall in his suit, holding Emma's hand. Jasmine's heart nearly stopped. "Hi," he said simply, his voice carrying a warmth that melted her defenses. "Hi," she stammered, glancing nervously around. "What are you doing here?" Emma grinned. "Daddy promised to buy me a book, and I told him we had to come here because you work here." Jasmine's cheeks flushed, both from surprise and a strange flutter she couldn't suppress. "Well, you came to the right place. What kind of book do you like, Emma?" "Fairy tales," Emma exclaimed, skipping toward the shelves. As the little girl browsed, Jasmine turned to David. "You didn't have to come all this way." "I know," he said calmly. "But I wanted to." Jasmine's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, but her walls were still high. She busied herself with stacking books, hoping to hide the storm of emotions inside her. When Emma finally chose a book, bright and colorful, filled with princesses and castles, David paid for it without hesitation. But before leaving, he looked at Jasmine. "We're making pancakes on Sunday. Come join us." Her breath caught. "David, I can't. I don't belong in your world." His gaze softened. "You belong wherever you choose to. Think about it." And then he was gone, leaving Jasmine with a racing heart and a battle between her fear and her longing. Sunday morning came faster than she expected. Marcus noticed her pacing the tiny kitchen, chewing her lip. "Why are you dressed up?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not dressed up," she said quickly, smoothing down her simple blouse. He smirked. "Right. So where are you going?" Jasmine sighed, giving in. "I got invited to breakfast. With someone. And his daughter." Marcus studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "You deserve it. Go." And so, with trembling hands and a heart full of doubt, Jasmine found herself standing outside David's house. It was beautiful, elegant, but not ostentatious, with a wide porch and a garden that looked alive with care. She almost turned back, but the door swung open, and there was Emma, her face lighting up like sunshine. "You came," the little girl squealed, pulling her inside. The warmth of the home hit Jasmine instantly. The smell of pancakes and syrup, the sound of soft jazz playing in the background, the sight of David flipping pancakes in the kitchen, wearing an apron that read "World's Best Dad." "Good morning," he said with a grin that made her knees weak. Jasmine laughed nervously. "I can't believe I'm here." "Believe it," he replied. They sat together at the table, the three of them. Emma chattered endlessly, and Jasmine found herself laughing more than she had in years. The food was simple, but it tasted like something she had been starving for. Not just pancakes, but family, warmth, belonging. At one point, David looked at her, his voice dropping low. "You fit here, Jasmine. More than you know." Her chest tightened again. She wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at her. Men like him didn't choose women like her. And yet, when Emma rested her head against Jasmine's arm as if she'd known her forever, Jasmine wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a life she had never dared to imagine. That Sunday breakfast stayed in Jasmine's mind like a song she couldn't stop humming. She told herself it was just kindness, just one morning, just pancakes, but her heart refused to listen. For the first time in years, she had felt like she belonged somewhere outside her cramped apartment. And more dangerously, she had started to imagine what life could look like if moments like that weren't temporary. The following week, Jasmine tried to bury herself in work, but David didn't let her drift away. He sent little gestures that surprised her. A bouquet of daisies left at the bookstore counter with no note. A warm coffee placed in her hands one cold morning before she even opened the shop. Sometimes, it was just him and Emma walking in casually, pretending they just happened to be nearby. Jasmine knew it wasn't coincidence. He was making time for her. Still, the walls inside her refused to crumble easily. Every smile from him was followed by a whisper in her head. He's too good. He's too rich. He's not for you. She reminded herself daily that men like David didn't stay. They helped, they charmed, and then they left. One evening, after closing the bookstore, she found him waiting outside, leaning casually against his car. The golden glow of the setting sun made him look almost unreal, and Jasmine froze for a second before gathering her courage. "David," she said, her voice caught between surprise and relief. "What are you doing here?" "Picking you up," he replied simply. "Emma insisted we invite you for dinner." Jasmine laughed nervously. "Emma insists a lot." He grinned. "She gets it from me." She wanted to say no, but her tired body and lonely heart betrayed her. "Okay," she whispered. Dinner at his house was different from breakfast. This time the table was set with candles, and the food was more elaborate. Emma kept the mood light, making silly jokes and showing Jasmine her school drawings. But beneath the laughter, Jasmine felt David's gaze on her, gentle, steady, like he was memorizing her presence. Later, when Emma went upstairs to bed, the silence grew heavier. Jasmine fidgeted with her napkin, unsure of what to do with the tension building between them. "Jasmine," David said softly, "I know you've been through a lot. I don't want to push you, but I also don't want you to think that what I feel for you is just kindness." Her heart skipped. "David, you don't know me. You don't know my struggles, my scars." "I know enough," he interrupted firmly. "I know you're strong. I know you put your brother before yourself. I know you work harder than most people I've met. And I know that when you smile, it feels like the world slows down for a second." Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "You deserve someone who matches your world. Someone polished, someone successful. I can't give you that." He reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "I don't need polished. I need real. And you are the most real person I've met in years." For a moment, time stopped. Her heart screamed to believe him, to take the leap. But fear dragged her back, whispering that if she let herself fall, the crash would destroy her. She pulled her hand away gently. "I can't, David. I can't risk it." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Thank you for dinner. But I should go." His face tightened with disappointment, but he didn't stop her. He only nodded. "If you ever change your mind, I'll be here." The ride home was silent. When he dropped her off, Jasmine rushed inside, collapsing against her door. Her chest ached. She wanted him, but she couldn't let herself hope. For the next week, she avoided him. No bookstore visits, no texts, no flowers. She threw herself into work and taking care of Marcus, convincing herself that she had done the right thing. David belonged to a world of light. She belonged to the shadows. It was safer this way. But then everything changed one Friday night. Marcus had gotten into a fight at school. Jasmine rushed to the principal's office, her stomach twisting. Marcus sat in the corner, his lips split, his fists clenched. He was defending himself, Jasmine argued, her voice trembling. The other boys were bullying him. Regardless, the principal replied coldly. He's suspended for 3 days. Jasmine led Marcus home, her mind spiraling. She barely had enough money to feed them, let alone handle suspensions, trouble, or whatever came next. She felt the walls closing in. That night, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, David stood there, worry written all over his face. "Emma told me Marcus was in trouble. Are you okay?" The sight of him broke her. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't do this anymore, David. I'm trying so hard, but it's never enough. He deserves better. I can't keep pretending I'm holding it together." Without hesitation, David pulled her into his arms. For the first time, she let herself lean on him, her sobs muffled against his chest. He didn't say anything at first. He just held her, steady and strong, until her breathing slowed. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered finally. "Not if you don't want to be." Jasmine closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her soul. For years, she had carried the weight by herself. And now, for the first time, she wondered what it might feel like to share it with him. The next morning, Jasmine woke with puffy eyes but a lighter heart. For the first time in a long while, she hadn't cried herself to sleep. David's words echoed in her mind. "You're not alone anymore." She wanted to believe it, But a part of her still feared that this fragile connection could vanish, leaving her emptier than before. Over the next few days, David showed up more often, not with grand gestures, but with simple, steady ones. He offered to drive Marcus to school. He helped Jasmine fix the leaky faucet in her tiny kitchen. He brought groceries without making it seem like charity, always involving Marcus so the boy felt useful, not pitted. Slowly, the walls Jasmine had built around her heart began to crack. One evening, David invited them both to a small community event, a local fair with food stalls, music, and games. Marcus resisted at first, but Jasmine nudged him along, reminding him he deserved a little joy. The fair was alive with laughter and lights. Emma ran ahead, pulling Jasmine toward the carousel. Marcus lingered by the basketball game until David handed him a few tokens. "Show me what you've got." For the first time in weeks, Marcus smiled. He sank shot after shot, pride flickering across his face. Jasmine watched from a distance, her chest aching with gratitude. David wasn't just reaching out to her. He was reaching out to her brother too. He wasn't here to take. He was here to give. Later, as the night sky filled with fireworks, Jasmine and David found themselves standing side by side, watching the colors explode above. Emma and Marcus sat on the grass a few feet away, sharing cotton candy, laughing like they had been friends forever. "It's been a long time since I've seen him laugh like that," Jasmine whispered, her voice trembling. David looked at her, his profile glowing under the fireworks. "And it won't be the last time. Not if I have anything to do with it." She turned to him, tears shining in her eyes. "Why me, David? You could be with anyone. Someone with your status, your wealth. Why choose someone like me?" He took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "Because money doesn't raise a child at night. Status doesn't make you laugh when life feels heavy. Wealth doesn't hold you together when you feel like breaking. You do all of that, Jasmine. You have something no amount of money can buy, heart. And that's what I've been searching for." Her lips trembled. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. Instead, she let herself feel the warmth of his presence, the truth in his voice. The night ended with a promise unspoken but deeply felt, that this was no longer just chance. It was the start of something real. Weeks turned into months. Jasmine and David grew closer, not through dramatic confessions, but through everyday moments. Breakfasts together, bookstore visits, evenings spent helping Marcus with homework while Emma braided Jasmine's hair. Their lives began to intertwine naturally, as if they had been waiting for each other all along. But not everyone approved. Whispers started when people realized who David was, the CEO with a reputation for power and influence, dating a poor bookstore clerk. Jasmine overheard comments at work, saw the way some women looked at her in disbelief. She carried the sting quietly, afraid the gossip might reach David and change everything. One night, she confronted him. "People are talking, David. They think I'm not good enough for you." He stepped closer, his hands gently cupping her face. "Let them talk. They don't know us. They don't know what we've been through, what we're building. All I care about is you, Jasmine. And Emma. And Marcus. That's my family now." The word family broke through every last barrier in her heart. She pressed her forehead against his chest, letting herself finally believe she was worthy of love, not despite her struggles, but because of them. The true test came one rainy evening months later, when Marcus fell sick with a fever that wouldn't break. Jasmine panicked, rushing him to the hospital, her heart in her throat. David was there within minutes, his hand steady on her back, his presence unshakable. Together, they sat through the night until Marcus recovered, stronger than before. In that hospital waiting room, Jasmine realized she wasn't alone. Not anymore, not ever again. When the doctor finally said Marcus was stable, Jasmine broke down in relief. David held her close, whispering, "See? We'll get through everything. Together." From that night forward, Jasmine stopped doubting. She stopped questioning whether she deserved him. She stopped fearing the future. Because the future wasn't something to fear, it was something to build. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Jasmine stood in David's kitchen flipping pancakes while Emma set the table and Marcus helped pour juice. David walked in, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and whispered, "Told you pancakes could change everything." She laughed, leaning into him. "You were right. It hadn't been easy, and it wouldn't always be." But as she looked at the table, at Emma's bright smile, at Marcus's laughter, and at the man who had seen her worth when she couldn't, Jasmine knew one truth above all. Sometimes love doesn't come with roses and diamonds. Sometimes it comes with milkshakes, pancakes, and the quiet certainty that you've finally found home. And for Jasmine, the poor girl who once walked into a restaurant with only $10 in her purse, that was more than enough. Jasmine's life changed with just $10 and a little faith. Maybe your story is waiting for its own twist too. If this touched your heart, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us, because the next story might just change the way you see love forever.